I want to know how this is going to work with the world map. Where in Elywnn is this going to be placed, or is it going to be instanced? Yeah, this is one of the main questions I have. They're going to be 2 new zones, but are they going to be instanced? And it's very hard. Like, you can kind of see where it's going to be on the Barrens artwork here. You know, there's like, you can find somewhere in game that looks exactly like this, but is a mountain range. Like, the coast looks exactly like this, but this is just a mountain range. And in the Barrens, you'd imagine it'd be quite easy to carve that out and to make that where the player housing goes, because it's massive as well. Obviously, it's going to be instanced because everyone's going to have like a different instance of this zone that is specific to them and 49 other people-ish, right? So obviously, it's going to be instanced, but that doesn't mean that you won't be able to just fly directly into it. Like, just because it's instanced, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to fly directly into it. And as evidence, I would point you towards, well, delves, but also garrisons. Like, you could just run straight up to your garrison. You didn't need to have like a loading screen. Like, you could be running with like 6 other people all towards your garrison at the same time. And at a point, they would disappear as you entered your own phase of the... I do hope that you're only allowed 1 house per faction location, to be honest. Otherwise, it just becomes a bit trivial otherwise, combined with the fact there's a good chance you'll end up in an empty neighborhood where all the houses belong to alts that don't get played anymore. Yeah, that's a danger too. And that's a good thing to bring up. And you can fly in Wall of Draenor, you know, across the map and directly into your garrison as well, right? So I would imagine it as working like that. Like, if you want to imagine how these zones will appear in the open world, like, I would imagine yourself approaching the garrison. I think that's what it will be like. You know, you will be like, I think you will be able to just like fly directly into it, into the zone. I don't think it will be like a separate pocket universe that you have to like teleport to or something like that, because that's just not how WoW does things anymore, or ever has really. You know, that makes sense for Final Fantasy XIV, because like, you can't walk halfway across the street without, you know, having to go through some dots and have a loading screen and being on the other side of the street, right? Like, their maps are just much more restrictive than World of Warcraft's open world. But I don't see any reason why the WoW version would have to work like that. But I am intrigued as to where this alliance zone is going to be. And do you know, like I always said, do you know how I've been saying since November 2023 when I started telling you that I thought player housing was on the horizon? Remember? Remember when I said that player housing was coming soon? And I was poo-pooed? And do you remember how I started talking about like all this new technology that's coming into the game? Stuff like the seamless entry into delves, and, you know, the tech that lets you get into Zaralek and the Ringing Deeps without a loading screen and stuff like that. And do you remember, and Warband tech as well. And do you remember how I said that I thought that all that tech had been developed for player housing and then had found other uses before player housing was ready to be announced? And I stand by that. I genuinely think that's true. I think that the Zaralek zoning tech, which is used to enter delves now as well, and a lot of the cross-account functionality of warbands, I think that stuff was genuinely developed for player housing. And I think it just found its way into the game in much smaller features first, because it's already been developed, but they weren't ready to announce player housing. And I stand by it. I think that's probably what happened. So yeah, it's a very obvious place where you'd put the Horde one, because you've got this mountain range just outside Orgrimmar. However, much more difficult to think where you might put the Alliance one. Complicated by the fact that, you know, you can kind of... I know you shouldn't take the concept art very seriously, obviously. Probably here. Probably this mountain range here. Maybe. Like, around here, maybe? Where these bandits are right now. Clear out the bandits. Carve this shit into the rock. Lots of space around here, right? You know? Probably the most likely. So, I know you shouldn't take the concept art very seriously because it is what it is, but it is kind of easy to see where this would be on the Barrens map. You can kind of place it. Whether or not it ends up being there, you can kind of place where this art comes from here. And the Alliance one is weird because the Alliance one literally has the Gates of Stormwind in it. And that complicates things. Really does. So, that would place it kind of where Goldshear is, really. Honestly, if you want to be able to see the Gates of Stormwind, you're kind of going to want to be here. And like I say, I'm not seriously suggesting this, but this is where you want to be. This is the path that leads to the Gates of Stormwind right here. There's the gates. You can see them there. If that was cleared, you'd be able to see it. So you're talking around here if you want to recreate where the art is. So in between Goldshear and Stormwind is what you're talking, which would also probably make it back onto the entrance to Northshire Abbey as well. But I don't think that it will be there. I think the most obvious place would be, for any of these zones, where mountain ranges are, right? Because you can flatten that shit, you can put whatever you want in that shit. And the Alliance one is said to have elements of Westfall and Duskwood, right? So the most obvious place to put it, if, topography wasn't an issue, would be in between Westfall and Duskwood, right? So somewhere along the south coast of Elywnn here. Probably the most obvious place to put it would be where Hogger is right now. Right? If you had to partition off a section of the map which would have elements of Duskwood and Westfall and is kind of its own self-contained little bit, this bit where Hogger is, and probably going into where Stonefield Farm is and the McClure Vineyards and stuff is, would probably be the place. Now, don't forget, this zone is going to be instanced. To a certain extent, all zones are instanced, right? And sharded. But, there's no reason why it can't suddenly get bigger the second you step into it. There's no reason why, the whole zone can't, on the Elywnn map, just take up as much space as this Hogger bit. But the second you step into it, it becomes much bigger, right? There's no reason why that can't be the case, I would imagine. So, you're not limited by the size of the Hogger encampment here, but it would seem like the most obvious place to put it because of that Duskwood element and that Westfall element, right? And it's kind of already partitioned off. You get rid of Westbrook Garrison, or you incorporate Westbrook Garrison into it, and you also get all of this area where the mountains is that you can work into now as well. Rework of those zones incoming, maybe. They said they want a better new player experience. Yeah, I'm very, very reticent to encourage complete reworks of Elywnn and the Barrens. Does it look old and janky? Yes. Is it unplayably old and janky? I would say no. And I think you're on really dangerous ground when it comes to Elywnn and the Barrens and Westfall and Duskwood and places like that, because they've got a magic which you can so easily lose. You start dicking around with Goldshear, you're onto a no-win, really. Look, Goldshear is always full of people. It's magical. It's as nostalgic as you can possibly fucking get in WoW. It's so iconic. And, I think you're on dodgy ground even replacing the buildings, honestly. I don't see the point. I don't see the purpose. I think it looks great. Look how much it still means to people playing the game. This doesn't need up-resing. This is classic. This looks brilliant. And when I say classic, I mean it's a classic. It's not classic WoW, it's vanilla WoW. But it's beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. But yeah, in terms of the Alliance, kind of zone. I mean, they could just put it out in the sea, honestly. That would be the easiest thing to do. The easiest thing to do, put it out in the fucking sea. But if you want it inland, so I think around here, I think this segment here, including some bits of the mountains and stuff, it just seems the most obvious place to put it, right? If indeed they're going to carve out a bit of a zone for it. I just feel like these mountains here, get rid of these bandits, no one's going to miss them. Like, all up here, finally get rid of this bit. Or incorporate it into it, right? And all this down here. You could build out into the sea from here a little bit as well. This just seems like the most obvious place to put it. If we go by the suggestion that there's going to be elements of Westfall and Duskwood in it. Will it be instanced? I mean, it will be instanced in the same way that your garrison or delves were instanced. Your garrison is phased. It's technically instanced, right? But you can still just like approach it from anywhere in the zone and just walk in. You can fly into it, right, from the other side of the map. You don't have to like port in or anything like that. So I'd be very surprised if it like lives in a pocket dimension. Because that's just not how WoW works. You know? And I think it would be a great waste if it lived in, if it was like a dungeon instance or something like that. I think that'd be a great waste. I feel like, you know, they've got the tech. They've got the delve tech, the garrison tech. So I think it would be a shame if they can't work that into the player housing zone. I think it would be a shame if I couldn't just fly straight into the zone, right? Because that's always been one of the strongest points of WoW. It would be disappointing to me. There you are. I'll say it. I would be disappointed if I couldn't just like run or fly into the zone. And I'm going to say fly because run suggests like there's one gate that you go through, which should be the same sort of thing. But like, I want to be able to, like, if the zone is over there, I just want to fly into it. I feel like the technology's there. I don't know. Obviously, I'm just making it up. I played Guild Wars 1 before picking up WoW, and you constantly had load screens. That meant for every new zone, you had to wait a minute while the zone data was loaded. Oh, a minute? Holy shit. I mean, it's the thing I don't like about Final Fantasy XIV. And it's the thing I found really difficult when I first started playing Final Fantasy XIV. And the small size, or the relatively small size and linearity of the little map segments, even back in, 2016, felt really limiting. In Realm Reborn, I know the zones got bigger after that. So, let's fly out of here. Is this WoD classic? So, like, yeah, here I am in the zone. And let's go to the most phased part of this entire zone. My garrison. Here it is. I'm flying along. And, like, nothing about the zone changes. There's no load screen or anything. Wait, I've lost it. Where has it gone? Look, it's been a long time, okay? I don't know where my garrison is, but it's here somewhere. So we're flying along. In fact, let's fly literally to the south of this. And we're just flying along, and you'll see there's no load screen. There's nothing. You just phase on in. Look, there it is in the distance. I imagine that's like the gate to the zone, right? But you don't have to go through the gate. You don't need a loading screen. You just fly right in. How? And it's all there for you when you're in there. But there's no one else here. This is just my personal phase. And that's what the housing zone will be like. No reason at all why it has to be like a loading screen or an instance or anything like that. There are more of these phases than will have to exist for player housing. Because this is just for me. The player housing phase will be me and like 49 other people. I don't see why we're going to have like a load screen or phasing or like any kind of like specific pocket dimension or whatever for player housing neighborhoods. As far as I can tell, the technology's been there since WoD to just like fly right in. If this tech exists, why is it taking so long? Well, I mean, you need more than just this tech. So this is the tech that lets you just fly in. But there's a lot more tech you need as well, right? For all the other stuff that player housing is. Yeah, maybe when you go up to your own house, it'll need some kind of loading or something. But as delves show, we have the technology to literally go into instances without load screens. We have that technology to be able to instantly go into an instance without a load screen. So even if it were instance, there's nothing that says there needs to be a load screen. I don't think you even need to get that far, because I think garrisons show that it can just exist. Just because it's phased. You know, everything's phased in WoW. You're always in a phase in WoW. Mum said WoW was just a phase, but look at me now. You know, I think I'd be surprised if we had to load into it. And I'd be disappointed if we had to load into it as well, because garrisons show that we don't, in my opinion. Anyway, do you think there'll be something like a friend list that we already have, but for adding neighbors that can visit your player house? Oh yeah, that'd be cool. I bet there'll be the option in public neighborhoods to, you know, set your front door as locked or not, right? So that, you know, you can either have it open that people can wander into, or you can not let people in. And yeah, garrisons broke the game, but they don't break the game anymore. And I think that's like a... Oh no, don't be sorry, Drino. I was just agreeing with you enthusiastically. But I think that's probably quite a big reason why player housing is being billed as a midnight feature, but it's releasing way before midnight. Like, it's releasing probably about 6 months before midnight does. And I think that's with this will probably break the game in mind. You know? It's inevitably going to break the game when it's introduced. It's going to. So why not just assume that it's going to? And give yourself 6 months to sort it out. Or, you know, at least a few weeks, right? I honestly thought I wouldn't really care about housing, but oddly enough, I find myself looking forward to it, which is weird for me. For me, it is like the social aspect of it that's interesting for me. And yeah, even like this bit isn't even... My shipyard isn't even contained by walls, and I still just phase into it. Yeah, some things pop up, but whatever, man. You know? The tech's all there. And you know, different parts of different zones have been running like this for God knows how long. Can you set your Hearthstone to your house? I would be incredibly surprised if you couldn't. Rather, I think you'll almost certainly get your own house Hearthstone. It would be wild if you didn't get a house Hearthstone. So yeah, most people will never have to fly into the house zone, but I think you'll be able to. I absolutely think you'll be able to. Yeah, I'm genuinely so much more excited by the idea of neighborhoods than just individual housing. I think it's such a terrific idea. I love the idea of neighborhoods, and I mean, we were all saying, oh, I hope there's the option for guild halls and stuff as well. But legitimately, neighborhoods, private neighborhoods, are just better than guild halls. Like, a guild neighborhood is objectively better than a guild hall. Especially as you'll almost certainly have like a hall building that you can use as a guild hall there as well. Because that's the thing. The great thing about neighborhoods, and I really hope they do this. I really hope they have plots in the neighborhood which are like community plots, which you can vote for and build things there. I hope that's like the kind of like the collaborative rewards they're talking about. Yeah, like you build a town hall, or you build like a theater, or like a fucking Ferris wheel or something, right? Cool shit that gets people out of the house where people gather. Like you build a tavern, stuff like that. And that, in a guild neighborhood, that becomes de facto your guild hall. So you get everything. Like, guild neighborhoods are just far and away better than guild hall. So cool. So good. Yeah, streamer guilds. I mean, kind of vile, but also could be really good if they're good, like, communities and stuff. Is this going to depopulate the cities, I wonder? Yes. Except not. Because, you know, you'll still have to go to the city to get your weeklies and your dailies, and it'll be where the city is, where, for example... I mean, look, what happens when we go to the city? Why are we in the city right now? Would you like if the neighborhoods were attacked by NPCs? It became like content, perhaps. Maybe. Okay, so why are we here right now? Why are we in the city? Well, it's where we pick up our delve quests. It's where we pick up our weeklies. There is the trading post here. Ooh, might pick up some stuff. And all of this is stuff that I don't think should be in a neighborhood, right? I don't think the trading post should be in the neighborhood. Well, maybe the trading post, but I'm not sure these holiday vendors should be there. I'm not sure there should be a catalyst in there. You could maybe make an argument for there being a bank, but I would make the argument that for the exact reasons Mego brings up, there is not a bank or an auction house in Neighbourhoods. You know, this neighbourhood is going to be a suburban neighbourhood. It's not a town centre. Bank, Great Vault, gear upgrades. You know what? I would go with an argument to make gear upgrades and profession tables. I'd probably put... Okay, here's what I do. I'd put profession tables in Neighbourhoods. I don't know. It just feels like the kind of thing that would work in a neighbourhood. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily be against that, but I wouldn't put many portals. I'd put a portal to the current capital, but I wouldn't put a portal anywhere else. I'd put a portal to the current capital, which is something you earn. It's like a community reward. Obviously, I wouldn't have a time waste portal there. You know, all of these are things that I would keep in the current capital. Tables, but with no trainer. I'd probably have it the other way around, actually. I'd have tables with a trainer, but which don't have the work orders part on them. I'd have tables for like crafting, but I'd have somewhere else you have to go to get your work orders. But then, even then, it doesn't really matter because there are still like 50 other people in this phase with you. So it's still going to kind of be social, but you don't want to suck people out of the main cities either. I mean, that is going to happen inevitably to some degree. But, you know, I feel like if you have the Great Vault, if you have your weeklies and your dailies and your catalyst and your gear upgrade and your time ways, I mean, that's why people are here right now. You just keep the important stuff that is how they keep people in the capitals right now. So there'd be a neighborhood perks tab, kind of like the guilds one. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that seems to be the suggestion from what they're saying. And yeah, I think unlocking a portal to the current capital would be a good thing. Do we think these are peaceful homesteads, or will you occasionally be attacked in these neighborhoods? I can't imagine there being attacks happening, but I don't think most people would like it if attacks happened. But maybe there's like some gameplay attached to that you could have. I think private guild neighborhoods is going to be huge. Yeah, me too. I think it's like the idea that makes it a really good idea. Like, genuinely, that's the moment I was completely sold when I realized I could have a guild neighborhood. A gabillion%. I was like, oh, okay, yes, every decision you're making is worth it because I can have a guild neighborhood. Yeah, that is so much better than my idea. I'm a big boy. I can admit when I was wrong, and the facility for having guild neighborhoods makes it better. I do share Mego's concern about emptying the capital cities, but I think as long as you have these facilities in the city that you have now and you don't put them in neighborhoods, and why would you? Why do you need them in neighborhoods? I mean, I kind of like the idea of having a bank and stuff in a neighborhood because it makes it feel like a little town, but I don't think they're going to go for that. I like the idea of it being a little town, but I see the importance of keeping people in the capitals as well.